Okay, so we have been tasked with covering the topic of productivity and scaling, which obviously we're excited about. Just a little bit of context for that. We are actually in the middle of moving into our third location collectively. So we've had to learn a lot along the way. We're still learning a lot as we go. And this is why I love speaking with other studio owners, because everybody's got their own way of doing things. And I think that's really important going forward. Obviously, we're going to give some of the insight into what we do at Revamp, and hopefully you'll be able to grab some gems, but obviously feel free to share some of the stuff that you guys do as well, because we're always learning.
We didn't want this to be like a presentation where we give you like information overload and you go away and you think, oh, what can I deploy? We're going to give you just a couple of gems that you can deploy into your business, and we're going to actually do a task where you're going to lay out what those examples are. So hopefully you're going to take one or two brilliant things away from this presentation today. We're going to do our best. All right, guys.
But first, we're going to get the boring bit out of the way, which is, who we are. So obviously, for those of you who don't know, Jack and I, we're both brothers. So that was us way back in the day. We went around about 2001 to now, obviously launching Revamp, our own fitness studio as well there. But we've followed kind of unconventional and conventional paths along the way. So Jack was a personal trainer, and I followed the less conventional path of being in a boy band. And so I was basically out there running Facebook ads, marketing the band, speaking to tour agents, kind of logistically and operationally, and as well as marketing, going down that route. Whereas Jack, if you could speak more about your personal training.
Yeah, so I mean, Christ, I joined the industry as a 16-year-old apprentice. Was tasked within that apprenticeship of pretty much opening and running the big gym that we're in. It was an open gym style back then. I then went into personal training, got fully booked. But as a lot of you guys who have been PTs, who may be PTs right now, you get to the point where you're like, oh, I'm doing like 5-6K maybe in revenue a month. I'm also working like 50 hours a week, right? So it's super exhausting. And I know a lot of you will be able to resonate with that. So I tried to scale the business in multiple different ways. One was an education arm where we started offering qualifications, which worked really well. And another one was a management arm. So we actually had the rights to like 4 locations. All those PT spots were mine under my brand, and I licensed those PT spots out. So that kind of added another 2 to 4K to the business. So I guess you could say I was a rich personal trainer back then, but I was still working 50-60 hours a week, which was pretty exhausting. I then bought my first gym in 2019. Great time, 6 months before COVID hit. So that was good fun. And then Jake and I scaled that with the marketing, and then we scaled Revamp in October last year. And now obviously we have the 3 locations. So that's a quick debrief on me.
Yeah, so just rewinding slightly there as well. So Jack was obviously kind of at capacity in his personal training business. I was, creating viral videos on Facebook and stuff of my band. And then what we decided to do was then join forces. So he would have that kind of personal training knowledge, and he could really kind of empathize with other personal trainers online and stuff. And then I could come in and help with the marketing and the systems and the automation side of things as well. So we ended up actually working with a lot of kind of Instagram fitness influencers. And then we actually parlayed that into running our own online training mentorship program, and that's one of our events back in, I think, 2022 or 23.
Yeah, it's July, I think. Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. But what we realized was, through doing all of that, and I'm sure this is kind of the epiphany a lot of you guys may have hit, especially if you were, starting out your careers as personal trainers, is that we weren't building a business that was actually bigger than ourselves. It was, our face. It was, all of the tasks, everything, all. We basically had to do them all. And we looked at each other in the eye and thought, if we're going to continue doing this together for a lengthy amount of time, then we need to kind of think of the new strategy and something new. And we were getting to a point where we just couldn't really realize what that was. And then we had a message come through to us from a guy called Alex. Alex runs a fitness studio in Exeter. And he reached out to us after following a lot of our content for online personal trainers and was like, look, I know you only work with online PTs, but I could do with some help, increase my revenue at my own fitness studio and getting some more members in. Like Jack said, we weren't complete novices at this. Like Jack already has and still has to this day his open gym with over 900 or so members. But we knew how to run the open gym model. But this whole idea of like a semi-private model was completely new to us. But what we thought is like, we'll be honest, we'll say, look, Alex, we haven't worked with any other independent studio owners up to this point. A lot of the principles we believe will still work, and obviously we've got that experience behind us in terms of the actual gym itself. So let's give it a go and let's see how we can get on. So we ended up coaching and consulting with Alex, and we quickly realized that things were a little bit mad, and the market for fitness studios and semi-private model was like booming. This was like last year. So like we started coaching Alex on our systems in May. He was like, the ads are going crazy. 3 days after he started implementing, and then literally 6 days after that, he was looking for a new site. So we realized that by combining some of the marketing efforts and things that we learned along the way in terms of the online training business industry, we could transition and translate a lot of that stuff into an in-person brick and mortar fitness studio. And when you add that recipe together, it looked like it was, something we needed to then pursue. And my idea of pursuing that was, Jack, we should work with way more studio owners and help consult and coach them. To which Jack responded with like, well, why don't we just do it ourselves?
Yeah, I remember texting Jake saying these results are insane in terms of certainly acquiring, which is what we really knew what we were doing in acquisition. And we're like, Christ, why don't we just do this ourselves? Because it was always a bit of a passion of ours. We already had the big open gym. So that's what we did. We signed a lease about 2 weeks after I texted Jake saying, let's do it ourselves. And we scaled revamp in Hadley, which is in Suffolk here in the UK, to full in capacity. It is now still full to this day. We have about 90 members there. And that's a tiny little high street location. So that's why I asked about the square foot earlier. Our Hadley location is about 900 square foot. We have 90 members there. And that is going insanely well. The business is really growing. So much so that we're actually opening another location next month, which is very exciting.
Yeah, so we quickly kind of formulated this launch plan. And this is kind of what we've become a little bit known for now within the studio ownership industry. So we kind of put together this 3-month plan, and we're like, oh my God, it's worked for us. Like, we need to find other studio owners and attach it to their businesses and see how it goes. And obviously, timely with Matt on the call, we met up with Matt. We helped Matt launch his studio, and in 9 days, obviously, they were completely full and hit capacity. And then we're like, oh my God, like, let's work with another guy. So we worked with another guy in Cambridgeshire, like, a little bit more local to us. That was a cool one because when he actually launched the gym, his best friend is Simon Pegg, so he opened up the studio for him. So we got to.
For anyone who's seen Shaun of the Dead, that was exciting for us.
And like this kept on happening again and again and again, and we started to work with way more studio owners, in which we then decided to mold everything into our coaching and media product, which is the Fitpreneur. And our definition of a Fitpreneur is somebody that is willing to go out and claim ownership over a brick and mortar studio and build a business that is bigger than themselves and that can scale. Because again, what tends to happen with most personal trainers is they rent a space on the gym floor, for example, and then they feel like they don't want to do that forever because they don't want to answer to the man, and then go and open up their own studio and then realize that owning a gym is completely different to, being a local personal trainer. And it's important to understand what that disparity is, which is why we're going into today's topic, which is productivity and scaling. So that was like the origin story.
So that's the origin story. I hope that didn't bore everyone, but that's a little bit about us and why we think you should listen to us. So here we go. Let's talk about some of the mistakes first the gym owners make. And there's some people on this call that will be able to resonate with some of these. Number one is they build a job for themselves. So we have conversations with studio owners all the time. And what normally happens, they go down the path of renting a spot in a gym. Let's just say they rent a spot on a gym group or a pure gym or something like that. They pay £400 or £500 for that spot. They do really well. They build up to kind of 20, 30 clients. They might be taking like 4 to 5K in income a month. And they think, I'm really good at this. I want my own space, right? But what they do is they jump into their own space. And now they're doing 4 or 5K a month. They're not actually sure how to scale or to get out of fulfillment, right? But they have loads of cost to the business. So actually they end up taking more for themselves home than they were before, right? Bit of an ego play. So what happened is they can't identify areas to fix, okay? Because they're in sessions, they're in and not on, okay? We always talk about working on the business rather than in it all the time, right? Which obviously leads to burnout. Who's been burnt out before? Just like a show of hands if you've been burnt out. Not like I can see everyone, but a show of hands is good. Yeah, Matt raises a hand. Thanks, dude. Yeah, it really is the worst feeling ever, especially in business.
And
Okay.
I always kind of define burnout as a lack of control, and especially if you're in sessions every day and you don't have other people that you're looking to scale with, then that lack of control only exacerbates, and then it then becomes very difficult to actually run the business. But when you do get productive, you can move faster than your competition, and we've found, especially within a local market, your velocity is incredibly important. Like if you can make decisions weeks ahead of other people, then it means you're always going to be ahead by definition, right? So you can make those decisions and move quicker. It also means that you can build a sellable asset. So depending on kind of what your goals are with the business or what your objectives are, at least, I mean, our belief is always you should build a business as if you were to sell it one day, because it just means you'll have a better, more robust business. So now what we do is we ended up using a lot of the systems we're going to talk to you about now in actually adding to the business and creating more value that way. And then obviously, ultimately, then you become a well-oiled machine and things become way more predictable, and you can actually see what bottlenecks need to be addressed and what, areas of the business is perhaps doing well and perhaps aren't doing so well.
I think just before we go on, a huge question that Jake and I have certainly asked ourselves as we're scaling locations is just back to I want to be able to sell this business one day. If you're always in your business, you're the head guy, okay? It becomes much, much harder to sell it. So we're starting to build systems, and we're going to talk to you about these systems here to make sure that when we sell it, it is the best business that a buyer could buy. We talk about making our business one giant buy button, right? So we want everything in one place where we can scale teams, scale systems, and be a well-oiled machine, as it says here, okay? And we're going to take you through some of these right now.
Okay, so the main framework in which we use for scale is this whole idea of the daft model that we've created. So we get daft, basically, is how we kind of frame this. So the daft model, in essence, is basically 4 stages that we go from coming up with a project idea to seeing it all the way through. So the idea and the sequence that we go through is first of all, we do the thing, we do it, we then automate it, we then finesse it, and then we then teach it, okay? So an example of that, how it looks in real life is right at the beginning when we launched the studio last October. This is the first time we actually launched our own semi-private fitness studio. So we didn't have loads of systems or anything like that some of our clients, for example, get the benefit of having. So we had to do everything manually. And I always liken it to, working analog and then digital. So we were very analog in those early days. So part of that meant that when we brought new clients into the business, we then organized live onboarding sessions with groups of those clients where we stood in front of them. We had a slideshow. We basically we call it a challenge orientation, where we gave them loads of information about how to get the best out of the program. Okay, so that was an example of us doing it and us in the weeds and actually doing the thing. But then as we move through the daft model, what we ended up doing is then being able to automate it. Okay, so we figured out actually what was working, what was resonating in those presentations, which then allowed us to automate it to a better degree than we would have done if we were to just go straight in and try to build workflows and so on. And automation looked like an email, like you can see on the left-hand side here, with some information about what they can get from the program, as well as like a landing page that they can go to where they can, actually ultimately onboard themselves. So then that took a big task away from us, but it also didn't take away anything from the product, because we'd already been able to get, a lot from these onboarding sessions. So we knew exactly kind of what people were looking for and what information they needed.
Still, to us though, this is minimal viable product here. Like this is, I guess a lot of the people in this call have something like this set up, right? Where someone joins, they get an automated email, and then maybe they might go through to a landing page where they can onboard themselves here. So when people are onboarding themselves, to give you a little idea of how this page on the right expands, they go through a PARQ form, okay, which directly links to a Google Sheet, so we can send that to our coaches. And then we get them to join the Revamp community, which is a Facebook group, so they can join that automatically. They jump onto the app so they can start booking their sessions. Okay, so all of these things can be done through one page. Okay, so but still pretty minimal viable. The next task for us was, how can we finesse this? How can we make it better?
Which leads us on to something we actually did last week. So we are thinking, okay, how can we be, add more touch points in those initial days once the client joins? Because obviously, as you guys know, it's incredibly important those first few days when somebody joins, they want to be able to really fit into the community. So we added loads of videos. So these videos will go into like a welcome series or an onboarding funnel, where those questions that we answered in the landing page format over here will now turn into videos, which are obviously way more consumable. We can be way more concise. It's way more engaging. And that is an example of us finessing it. Okay. Which then later brings us on to this final point of the DAFT model, which is to teach it. Okay. So like Jack mentioned, we want to build this business to a point where it's becomes a sellable asset. We won't be able to do that if all of the information that we have stays in our heads. So we need to actually put this down on paper. So we have what we call a playbook vault, where every single task, whether it be big or small within the business, we make it into a playbook or an SOP, and then we itemize every single thing, all the actions that are needed in order to complete that task. So as you can see, there's some other stuff here for LegitFit, issuing a new credit on LegitFit, all those types of things. We have our own playbook for, so that if anybody needs to take on that role or own that role, then we can move ownership of that task to somebody else, and they have a clear steps in order to achieve it. So that is our example of teaching it.
This is also goes on to what I just alluded to on earlier. This isn't just to be able to sell it and have everything in one place, but as we scale, we're going to need these things in the business. So we're going to need like separate teams or separate locations to be able to jump into the playbook vault and get an answer to a question and get the step-by-step process on how to answer that question. So that's really, really important. And we're going to have this playbook vault across the whole business. So every studio manager knows exactly what they're doing at any given time. Okay. So this is about building out systems, so you're not always having to manually answer questions as you scale up.
Cool. So just to reiterate, obviously DAFT model, do it, automate it, finesse it, teach it. Okay. So if you're somebody right now, whether you're watching the back of this recording, obviously if you're here live with us, I'm assuming there's stuff in your business that you currently do that you probably wish you didn't have to do, but haven't got around to maybe outsourcing or delegating or anything like that. So what I thought would be a cool exercise right now to try and make this a little bit more practical, as opposed to just us two chatting for the whole hour, is figure out a way that we can actually workshop this together. Okay, so in this this worksheet is a DAFT builder. So we can send this obviously, Josh, to everybody after this as well if needed, if you wanted to print this out or whatever. But basically what you've got here is all your projects on the left-hand side, your version of what it looks like to do it, the version of what it looks like to automate it later on, perhaps, how that might look if you finesse it and you make it that kind of marginally better, and then how you're going to actually put it into some kind of lesson, whether it be stored within the business or whether you teach it like we do with our coaching clients as well.
So obviously the example we just gave you, the project was client onboarding, and we went through the do it, the automate, the finesse it, and the teach it of how we've done it. So guys, we're going to give you 3 minutes right now. Time has started. Just come up with a project, a do it, an automate it, a finesse it, and a teach it. Down on your notes there, you can draw it out like the framework in front of you if you need to. But I want to see a project, and then how you're going to do it to start with manually, how you're going to automate it, how you're going to finesse it, and how you're going to teach it. We're not going to go through everyone after this, so don't worry. Like everyone's like leaving, thinking, "Oh my god,
yeah, they're going to pick on me.
God, they're going to pick on me." We're not. It's just seeing if we can just get you guys thinking slightly differently. Okay.
Yeah. So this might be something you actively, you're doing right now. Like I said, that you wish you weren't doing. So we can actually workshop it together. We can figure out a way that you can leave that task and hand it to somebody else, for example, or how you can possibly even automate it as well.
Yeah, one just example for us of something that we've thought about in our business is client weigh-ins. So that's like a project for us of how we're doing it right now is a client email saying, "I want to be weighed," and then we get a manual booking in the diary. Soon we'll be automating that, and then we'll finesse it, and then we're going to teach it to clients and have it within the business for other coaches to scale up with.
Another example is we at the beginning of this year, we introduced the idea of clients being able to ask for 2-week, 14-day holiday period within the year, where we pause their accounts. Again, what that looks like at the moment is they say, "Hey, Jake," or "Hey, Jack, can I, take a week off on this date?" We then look at it, we say, "Yeah, okay." We put it in our diaries. We then schedule the port, all this kind of thing. Whereas a way of automating that is we have some kind of like centralized form that somebody then fills in and maybe checks to see whether they've requested holiday before, all of those different things. So there's definitely stuff that within our business at the moment that we take through this whole process.
Has anyone got a project that they'd like to share so we can help workshop it potentially? If you have, let us know. If not, we can just move on. But there's something that you're going to need help with here. A really good time would be to to say, cool, this is a project. There must be something in your business, challenges right now that you have look kind of great at you and you wish they could be automated or whatnot. Anything at all, guys?
It sounds like you've all got better businesses than we have.
We're really happy about. Really happy about. If there is anything, obviously, Josh, just keep an eye on the chat. We can answer anything as we go, and we'll go from there. Okay, but let's move on. Let's move on. If no one's got any projects, you've got great businesses, guys. I'm pleased for you. Cool. Any questions? We just answered that right there.
Yeah, so obviously we were kind of hoping to workshop that for about 10 minutes, but obviously, like I said, you guys seem to be well-oiled machines already, which is good. But yeah, so in terms of what now, Jack and I, obviously we've introduced exactly, who we are and all that kind of thing, but we have loads of different ways that you can kind of learn a lot more with us. So we have our Instagram, obviously, got a free newsletter that goes out to over 3,000 fitpreneurs every single week on a Sunday, a YouTube channel and a podcast as well that we upload on a weekly basis too. So we go through everything basically you need to do in order to start, grow, and scale your fitness studio business. We also consult at a high level, but at the moment we're completely full because part of our ethos is, we want to grow, revamp for all the reasons we've outlined in today's presentation. And for us to be able to do that, we need to be able to cap the amount of consulting clients we work with. But if you are interested in that as well, then obviously feel free to reach out. We can add you to the waiting list as we open up more spots.
Josh, do you think it would be a good idea to finish here with just like questions which are maybe kind of not indirectly linked to this presentation? If anyone has any questions about their business or anything they're struggling with right now, we can definitely help them here. If we can just do 5-10 minutes on that, if people have got questions.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Also, if you don't have questions now and you do want to reach out to the guys later, their newsletter, I would say, is great. I follow it. There's a lot of good information in there that will help. We use that a lot from our own idea generation on what we can do and how we can help businesses. So definitely give a follow for that newsletter.
Awesome. Yeah, and the podcast is really popular. Like, we get a lot of inbound about consulting through the pod. So if you search the Fitpreneur podcast on Spotify, and you can go back and binge some of that stuff. It's mainly just me and Jake messing about, but there are some good stuff in there as well, I promise.
I think, like, from our online personal training coaching days, one thing we wanted to do with this side of the business now is actually have that earned insight. Because I think the problem with, as we look at the online training business industry, a lot of coaches there perhaps don't have the earned insight that they perhaps should. And that was probably why we were reluctant to go into coaching studio owners without having done it ourselves. So that whole podcast is basically us in real time talking about how we are growing Revamp and some of the things that are working, some of the things that might not be working. So if you kind of wanted to be a fly on the wall and get some practical ideas, a lot, linking to automation and content creation and marketing and acquisition, all of that kind of thing, then that is probably the best place to go as well.
Awesome. To finish here, has anyone got any questions about their business? Something that we can help with or they're struggling with? If you have, definitely unmute yourself and ask. If not, we're going to bounce. Are we good?
All good, I think.
Okay, cool. Guys, love it. Josh, we're done, dude. We're on again next week. Which
not next week, next month, isn't it?
Next month, yeah.
Months mixed
cool. I was going to come here next week. I'd have been sitting by myself. But we're on again next month. What's the topic? Do you remember?
Launching.
I
believe, isn't it?
Cool, launching. So perfect is your in launch, or if you are looking to launch another location, that is going to be a cracker. Unfortunately, clients get the best value. So Matt, don't worry, mate, you're all good. But hopefully we can give some great insight on how to launch a studio successfully. But guys, appreciate you being here. Thanks for giving up half an hour at lunchtime. to come and listen to a couple of brothers spin the yarn. And if you've got any questions ever, reach out to us on all those platforms. We'd be happy to answer them and have a chat.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Jacob.
No worries.
Pleasure, guys.
Cheers, guys. Thanks
See
for
you,
being.
mate. Bye.
Take care.